Get ready to skyrocket your business and experience exponential growth. Welcome to Grow with Gary, the podcast dedicated to helping you navigate the ins and outs of business and entrepreneurship, bringing you compelling guest interviews with business experts, offering actionable insights and inspiring stories that humanize success. So grab your colleagues and get ready to unlock the secrets to success. Now, here's your host, business coach and owner of MICU Growth, Gary MICU Jr.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Grow with Gary, Modern Life and Business. Of course, I'm your host, Gary MICU Jr., also known as Coach Gary with MICU Growth. And today we have another Gary. So we are going to blow your minds with some amazing Gary content today. We're going to say a lot of the word Gary. So if you are not able to deal with that, tune out now, but be sure to follow. If you are able to deal with that, you're going to get some amazing content. So without further ado, I want to give a very brief introduction, and then I'll turn it over to the man himself, Mr. Gary Ryan, all the way from the land down under. And I understand is a little bit of a different time at the time of recording here. You had quite an early morning with an event that we had together as part of the 10X Business Coach program. But I'll let you share a little more on that if you feel. And Gary is an author, a coach, and father, an incredible person, and above all, fantastic to work with. So, Gary, if you want to give a little more detail there, because I know I just touched the surface, but if you want to share just a little bit about what it is exactly you do, maybe your niche, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Gary. I love that introduction. And yes, there's a bit of an echo with the Gary's going on here today, folks. We even spell it the same way because both of us only have the one R, right? Those two R Garys, you got to watch out for them, don't you?
They're sneaky. You can't trust them.
That's right. Look, few key things. I come from a really passionate blue-collar family. I was a bit of a culture buster, I guess, in terms of the going off to university and being, at that time, one of the first males in my extended family. I'm one of 11 children. My father was one of 13, mum one of 6. I got 64 first cousins. Men didn't go to university in our family. And in fact, people didn't really get very well educated, to be brutally honest. Like my dad got pulled out of school at the age of 15 and so did mum at the age of 14 to pay for their families and go and get jobs. So, yeah, a little bit different in that regard. Even my own twin brother, he went and got a trade like my other 6 brothers did. And fundamentally in that pathway, I help business leaders really develop a culture that enables them to be great for themselves, meaning they go home and sleep better, great for the people that they're leading, and fundamentally great for the organization in terms of the culture and the results and outcomes that it achieves. And I do that across a wide range of industries. And as you said, I am a published author. I've actually published 3 books now. What really matters for young professionals, Disruption Leadership Matters, and the most recent one, Yes for Success, which folk can see in the background. And that's been one of a great activity to undertake, to actually take what you believe and put it down in writing and then put it out to the world and get the praise and the criticism that comes with it, Gary.
Yes. And those challenges as well, going through that publishing process, and we've talked on it before, it's very lengthy. It's not a simple thing by any stretch. And as we get a little further, maybe we can talk a bit more on that. But I wanted to take it back to all those siblings, your brothers and sisters, and boy, what a large family. And to some of those earliest, either childhood or early career points where, business and entrepreneurship really came through. And I know you've got a bit of an interesting twist that you experienced in your life.
Yeah, so when I was a 5-year-old and my parents sent us to primary school, it's called here, not elementary school as you call it in the US. And because I'm a twin, the school system, we had 3 grades. There was 33 children in each of the 3 grades, so about 100 children at our level. And the school believed that Dennis and I, that's my twin, should be put into the same class. But my parents believed that I, in particular, needed to be separated from my twin brother because up until that age, I would cling on to him. And so they fought the school for us to be able to do that. Now, we lived 1.5 miles away from the school. My mother didn't drive, so we walked there and back because Dad had the car with his work.
Okay.
And from day one, because I wanted to be with my twin brother, the bell rang at the start of the day. I started to cry. I ran outside, grabbed my bag, and then ran home, right? 1.5 miles. Hid behind the couch while my mum was hanging out clothes on the clothesline. The phone rings, like the old classic ring, 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 ring phone.
Oh, yeah.
Mum comes in, answers the phone. The school tells her, I've done a runner. Now, you imagine, because I did this for 3 weeks in a row, 15 days in a row I did this.
Oh, my goodness.
Right, yeah. And you imagine the pressure on my parents to put me in class with my twin brother. And my dad, bless him, he said, no, this is exactly why Gary needs to be in a separate class. Now, I can't really remember the decision, right? But
Sure.
obviously at some point I'm running, 6 miles a day? I'm walking or running. And I'm only 5. I was a fit 5-year-old. And it's
Absolutely.
like, at some point I've gone, this is too much. Now, why that's important is because when we got to the age of 10, Mum and Dad sat us down, as they'd done with all our older siblings, and said, where do you want to go to high school?
Okay.
I looked my dad in the eye and I said, I want to go to university. And he's like, I'm not even talking about university. And if you go to university, what are you going to do? And I said, Gary, I don't know. I just knew I had good grades at school and I knew I didn't want to be a tradesperson.
Okay.
Now, he turns to my twin brother and says, so do you want to go to the local boys' school too, which was different? Like that was the pathway to university, the local boys' school, which was expensive and in my family's finances at the time. And he turns to my twin brother and he says, do you want to go there too? And my twin brother, Dennis, said, oh, no. I want to go with my brothers because I heard there's too much homework at that other school, right? So this is the age of 10 right now. Dad looks at me and says, all right, I'm going to go and get a second part-time job. And he did, to pay for you to go to that boys' school. And Dennis, you can go with your brothers to the trade school. Now, what extraordinary servant leadership from my parents, bless him. And, I'm so grateful that he got to witness me graduating with my first degree 3 weeks before he passed away. And I'd spent 2 years with Mum nursing him through his cancer. So in terms of entrepreneurialism, as you sort of introduced that, I didn't know the word entrepreneurialism when I was 5 or 10. And I didn't have any clue about it, to be brutally honest. But the power of vision, the power of seeing a future and being drawn towards it, and equally the power of having people around you to support you to make that happen, because that could not have happened without the support of my parents.
No, they created that environment, something that, even this morning, Elena Cardone was speaking to, as far as creating the environment as a parent is our responsibility and our duty, to instill then that confidence and that independence in you to be able to make such a wise decision at the age of 10 and recognizing and persisting through you running home for 15 days straight. How many parents may have just given in? And certainly, as you said, I'm certain the school had to have been putting pressure. They were against it from the onset. And that action, right, of a 5-year-old would just simply reinforce, right? This is why they need to be together. And your parents had that foresight. And as you said there as well, the vision, not only did you have the vision to go there, but they had the vision for you to create that environment to make you have that ability to stand on your own. So incredible.
Absolutely incredible. Now, alongside that, at the age of 10, I got my first proper job. And 6 days a week, I was getting up at 5 a.m. and doing a morning paper round, which was over 7.5 miles long. It was half residential and half industrial. Okay. And part of the industrial sites, we're talking 1981, right? A long time ago. And not all the guard dogs necessarily stayed inside the factories. And there were some pretty wild dogs I used to have to dodge on my round, right?
Wow.
This one particular day, the most vicious dog on my round, Gary, was out. And it was I saw it chasing this man in a suit down the road ahead of me. And I panicked and I dumped the 20-odd papers I still had left to finish my round. And I just dumped them in the front yard and went back, right? I was so scared. Anyway, by the time I get back, which is probably only 10 minutes, there's the owner of the store out the front with his arms folded. I can't remember his full name. I just remember I used to call him Mr. Jim. And Mr. Jim says, he's standing there, right? His arms folded. It's probably abuse these days, but he's standing there.
You couldn't do it now, sure.
He says, you didn't deliver all your newspapers, did you? And I said, no, that dog, I keep telling him, the dog's out. It's going to tear me alive. And he says, go back and find a way and deliver those newspapers because people have paid for them, right? Now, I was terrified and petrified, but I turned around.
So.
I turned around, I went back, I found my newspapers, I hid my bike, and I don't know, it was probably not so smart, but on one level maybe it was because I thought I could climb a tree or something if I needed to. Okay. On foot, I basically, like a soldier, snuck through the streets, avoiding this dog to be able to finish that round. Now, in terms of being an entrepreneur and all of those sorts of things, it's funny how those memories stick with you because in a weird sort of way, in a cruel sort of way possibly, I learned this lesson, Gary, that you have to find a way to deliver.
You do. Yes.
And throughout my business life, which is now 17 years old, and the way I lead with my wife, Michelle, our 5 beautiful children, you have to find a way to deliver in life. And I think for me personally, that's why when I came across the 10X material, it's like this spark just went off and went, I get this.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And that spark it's unique to each person, but it's a common thread through the community is that it has that epiphany, right? The light came on, it just hits. And that's such a common moment. And I think then too, because of that, it creates a level of camaraderie through certainly the other 10X business coaches, but broader than that, even through the entire 10X community, no matter the level of engagement. But the more engaged that you get, the more that you hear is, that origin story of when did you come across it, or if you came across it and at that point weren't all in, at what point did it just hit? And now you're like, I want to be 10X. This is what now I know. I didn't know how to phrase it before, but now I fully embrace this 10X thing. This is it. This encompasses so much more, and it really hits all those points. And one of the things I think, especially the story about the dog, it hits towards this. But I'm wondering as well as, and I'm certain that you have, certainly through your career, other challenges or adversity that you may have faced as far as, even up until the point where an obstacle you may have at some point wanted to throw in the towel, and maybe you knew you couldn't and you pushed through it, or maybe something else drew you back from that edge, because clearly you've created a massive level of success through to today. And
you don't be in business for 17 years doing what I do and not have had your toes over the edge of the cliff and the abyss at several stages. So I've had to reinvent the business 3 times over 17 years. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So the first time was when I started with a business partner, and we had our plans written down, we had our vision written down, but over a 3-year period, I learned, and this is not in any way being negative about my ex-business partner, but it's about, you can't just write down your vision and your plan. You've actually got to both be living it and believing in it and doing it. And unfortunately, we weren't. And I probably knew, to be honest, 6 months into the business that we weren't on the same page. But I didn't want to believe it. And so I went through this period. Now, that happened to then coincide with the GFC. And the GFC actually had, for our new business that started in 2007, it actually had a 12 to 15 month delay before it really hit.
And what is that GFC that you're referencing, just for everybody who may not be familiar with that term?
Yeah, so that was in 2008. So we'd been literally 2007 was an incredible time to start a business. I don't ever remember a client saying, I won't pay that price. I don't ever remember a quote not getting through. It was an incredible time to start a business. Yes. It was amazing. It really was. It was Camelot for business, right? But then towards the end of 2009 here in Australia, everything just came to a stop. Like it just stopped.
Absolutely.
And we hadn't developed the skills of prospecting, of marketing, any of that. Even like the word close, I had no idea what that meant. I mean, I was doing it, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't really know anything about selling or marketing other than I just knew do a great job and people will keep using you and referring you. And that's what had been happening. But anyway, so that all coincided with, and I had to make the courageous decision to say to my business partner, we need to separate. I want to keep this business. I believe you should go and keep doing what you want to do, but that's not with this business. And to his credit, he agreed and we was very amicable and we separated.
Oh, excellent.
So then got the business smashing along again, did something from about 2017 that to just up until the pandemic that I was going that well that I made the big error that I will never, ever make again, Gary. And I hope the listeners, all the entrepreneurs out there listening to this, really listen to what I'm about to say is I made the error of getting comfortable with my success. And I stopped doing what I now know was massive action that got me to where I was. Okay. I stopped. I was doing a great job still, but all the extras.
You were coasting.
Yeah. I got comfortable. Right.
Okay.
And then this thing called a pandemic came and just smacked me between the eyes. When in 5 business days, 90% of my business stopped.
Wow. So
90%.
Over 5 days,
in 90%
of your business, just
90%, call after call after call. We have to put the brakes on. We have to stop this.
Wow.
We have to, and about 75% of that never returned.
Wow.
Because they went out of business. People weren't in the jobs anymore. Whole areas of people. Like there was one organization, I had relationships with 17 people in that organization. And by the end of the first 6 weeks of the first lockdown, the first global lockdown, not one of them were in that organization anymore. I had no contacts there anymore.
Wow.
Right.
And how long had you spent building those 17 relationships?
Years.
Yeah.
And some of them just retired. Some of them just stopped. Some of them went into businesses that have eventually got me to work for them again. But they were starting from scratch again. They had to get to know their business again. And with a lot of what I do, the business sort of has to be ready. Okay, and so that leads.
Absolutely. They have to be willing to accept it.
Yeah, I thought I'd cultivated my relationships well, and I had, but if they weren't in the job anymore because they didn't have the job, there wasn't much they could do. And some of the smaller to medium enterprises I was working with, Gary, they just had to hold on to every dollar. They had to keep paying for the people in their business, which was fair enough. You totally understand it. But so then I spent the next 3 and not quite 3.5 years rebuilding my business again. And it was hard, man. It was hard. And talk about, can I keep doing this? I started to think, do I need to go and get a job somewhere? And honestly, I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And I'm so fortunate. And Elena spoke about this morning my time, that Michelle, my wife, has just 100% backed me with the business every step of the way. And when I said I can't go and do something else, I have to make this work again.
Make it work.
Right. And that's when I was looking for something to partner with.
Okay.
And that's when my twin brother, in fact, who lives in Florida in the States, he was saying to me, Grant Cardone. And I'm like, I've done all the gurus. I didn't know anything about Grant other than my twin brother saying his name. I've done all the guru stuff. It hasn't really worked for me. I've spent so much money, and I have invested in them over time, and learned things here and there, but not really got anywhere near the promised return. So I'm like, he's just another one of them. And then this, quite literally, I've finished a coaching session with one of my female clients, and this was in late May of this year. Okay. And she says to me, "Do I know any women who teach about mental models, which is one of the concepts I teach in all my books.
Oh, okay.
And I said, yeah, look, there is one, but she's a bit old. She doesn't really actually use that phrase specifically. I think she really hasn't been publishing much for about 10 years. Hey, I'll go do a search and I'll find a younger version, but I know what I'm looking for, so it won't take me very long. I'll go do that for you, right? So I finish the call and I go and do that action. Within 10 minutes, I find an incredible young Chinese, Japanese, educated in the USA, now living back in Japan.
Wow.
A woman called Vicky Zhao, right? So anyone check out Vicky Zhao. Her material on mental models specifically for women is just incredible, right? I'm like, this is awesome. Guess who pops up in an ad when I'm watching the second 8-minute video?
Mr. Grant Cardone.
And guess what his ad was for? A webinar that was happening in 3 minutes' time. So it's the first time I've actually seen him. I recognize his name because of my twin brother. I look at my schedule. I'm available. I go, hell, I'm going to do this. Now, did I know he was going to sell me something?
Probably had an inkling.
Yes, I knew, right? And I knew, honestly, within 3 minutes of that webinar, Grant reignited the 38-year-old that started my business.
Wow.
Within 3 minutes. That's a true story. Within 3 minutes. And that fire's just been burning like crazy ever since.
Yes, and I have the privilege of seeing that at least every Friday my time, Saturday for you. I get to see that just week in, week out, how that fire continues to burn. So in that first 3 minutes, that was the engagement time. Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, incredible. Like, and the guys backed it up how many times over, right? In what I've been seeing and witnessing, and on the 1st of June. So this was the 30th of May.
Okay.
On the 1st of June, I announced publicly via LinkedIn that I was going to write a book called Yes for Success and publish it by November of this year. Now, I published this book on the 19th of October.
Yeah.
And it's 52,000 words, right? And it's based on a program I've been running for 13 years. So, granted, I had all the, the core material, but
putting it all together and that's a massive undertaking, especially to set that target, to keep to it, to do whatever it takes to reach it. And in between there, of course, coming on to the 10X business program. Incredible. And if I remember correctly from when we had talked, so on that 10X business program, making that decision was very a hefty one. It was a very weighty decision for you. And would you wager to say that maybe it was one of the riskiest decisions you've made in taking that leap and putting that faith in at that time?
In terms of my business investment, the riskiest decision I've made. But equally, because of that investment, you really have no choice if you're prepared to make yourself have no choice. Because, of course, you do have a choice, right?
Always.
But
have a choice.
You always have a choice. But for me, it's like, I have to make this work. I have to learn, leverage the fact. I mean, I'm really lucky. I've got a business that I've been doing for 17 years, right?
Yeah.
I have an existing client base. So compared to a lot of other people that are starting from zero, I've got that and I leverage that. And I have been mostly applying this learning to my business, which was always my intent, with the view that actually from 2024, which is not very far away now.
No, it's not.
I'll have internalized it, understood it well enough. And this is just the way I operate, right? So others are different. But for me, I'm going to have my own stories of this. And look, clearly writing this book is one of them. Of putting that into action as in addition to everything else I've done with my business. I've got to be able to walk the talk. I've got to be able to look people in the eye and say, I practice what I preach. What I'm teaching you is what I am doing. And I know it works, right? And it is literally, look, it's, I guess this will sound boastful, but to a degree, you need to back yourself, right? No. I know a lot about what I do. I'm very good at what I do. I'm very good at my facilitation. I'm very good at helping people develop their leadership skills. However, the 10X material literally has 10X'd it, 10 times it. Right. And that's right. It's freaking exciting. And
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Like I literally, in my own head, I still think I'm in my 30s now. Which is great for the
Good.
kids and obviously Michelle and great for me because I look, like you, it's not about my business. It's about the people we get to serve. It's about seeing those results, seeing people come alive again, having people say to you, what Grant did for me, they're saying, Gary, you did that for me, right?
Yes.
That just, that gives me goosebumps every time because that's what I want to be doing. I want to help people and like, folks, if you're listening to Gary's podcast here, this is part of feeding your mind. I agree with Grant. It's the beast our mind. Like, feed the beast.
Absolutely.
Like, there is so much negativity out there. You just have to stop watching the news. Like Jared said this morning, and I've stopped that for ages now. It's just a glance for me now, right? That's just a quick flick and the odd read, but that's it. I'm not consuming news because it's so negative. No. And the news people know how our brains work. They know how to attract us.
Very well studied.
So you have to feed yourself material like Gary's work right now with this podcast, folks. It's so, so important. And, I know you agree with me on this, Gary, that if we can help influence more people as parents, as business owners, as leaders, as community members, as people of faith, if they have faith, to be feeding their minds positivity so they can be extraordinary again. And that's what Yes for Success is about. It's about targeting people that, like me, are really an ordinary person living an extraordinary life.
Yeah, because it's such a fantastic, it's a feat because the work and the accomplishment that needs to occur to achieve it, I think makes it fair to say that it is a feat. It is that high of an accomplishment, but it can be ordinary. It's not exclusive to a group of people. It's not exclusive to a subset of a culture or a geography. There's no limitations on that achievement of success. And especially today with all the interconnectedness, right now we've got thousands of miles between us and we're having a conversation like we normally do. We regularly have it. We have always have that distance, but it's our interconnectedness allows to overcome that. And it's so powerful. And then to be able to include that and boil those points down then into your book and through writing the other two books, I'm sure that laid part of that groundwork to be able to really condense it in. And what you're saying there is taking on the role of a mentor, being able to provide that guidance, whether it be as a coach formally or informally, just to provide that shining light and that direction for others to really help grow themselves. And I think one of the things, at least I know certainly in my journey, and I'm going to ask is about your journey, is have you had mentors as well that have stood out? And I think, recently it sounds like a very strong influence has been Grant, among others, certainly. But I'm wondering, either further back or if there's others that have also influenced you in some way. It's something that maybe has stuck with you through times.
Yeah, so definitely Grant, but equally Accountability Team Zero that you're leading. All of the members of that team I consider as mentors now, because I'm learning from every single one of them, and we're all doing such different things. But I'm because that's how I see the world. But if I go back, so my business partner, my original business partner, he was 4 levels above me in an organization when I first went to work. Okay. And he observed me because I was commercializing a fitness center for Monash University here in Melbourne, Australia. And the fitness center was part of a broader organization that included retail and hospitality and career development services for students, etc. And my job was to come in and take that fitness center that originally just been for students and staff and open it up to the public. So this is I wasn't thinking entrepreneurialism, but I had to do it. I had to.
Yeah, very much so.
It was exactly. It was there. It was like this opportunity came along. I went, yeah, I can do that. No clues what I was doing. Anyway, the staff, the 8 staff that we had at that time that were reporting to me the youngest was 8 years older than me. Now, I was okay with that because I have so many older brothers and sisters. However, because I had the title manager and because I had the big dollars of $23,500 a year that I was earning at the time. I had a mindset that I had to have all the answers. Now, while this leader was working out, he witnessed me faking it till I make it with my staff that I was leading at the time. He witnessed that. And he said, come here. And he goes, this is what I've observed. Are you interested in doing some reading? Now, I know he's 4 levels above me at the time. Now, he's actually only 5 years older. So he was quite successful in his career very, very young.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, well, there's only one answer to this question. Yes.
Yes.
I had started reading, which was Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People a couple of years earlier. And I was still a bit sporadic with my reading. And anyway, he gave me this book by Peter Senge called The Learning Organization and the Fifth Discipline. It's called The Fifth Discipline. And it was like this thick, 700 odd pages. And he said, in particular, I want you to read this chapter. Okay. It was about mindset. And I just never looked back. And I quickly realized that what I was doing, this fake it till I make it mindset, was completely flawed. Learn it till you make it is far, far better. And I completely shifted that mindset. So he was, his name was Andrew. Andrew was definitely a mentor, and he just kept feeding me books until I started being able to pick them for myself. Excellent. And then when I started my business, one of Jock McNeish, who actually has done the illustrations in my book, some of these illustrations. Yeah. Like Jock, who's now in his 80s, bless him. I went and saw him about running my business. He said a couple of things. He said, look, for the first 2 years when you start your business, you're going to find getting off the ground is going to be relatively easy. Now, he didn't know a GFC was coming when he said this, but it actually turned out to be true because he said people will want to help you. But that means you've got 2 years to work out your mechanism of how you're going to get people coming into your pipeline, right? Because you're going to have to burn your own. Because after 2 years, they'll move and they'll help someone else. And the second thing that he did for me was also about mindset. Because he said to me, how much are you going to charge people on a daily rate? At that stage, I was locked into thinking about daily rates, right? So I gave him an answer, which was $1,500 a day. So this is end of 2006. Straight away, looks at me in the eye and says, I've worked with you. He was a consultant for our organization. He goes, I've worked with you and I know your value. You're worth at least $4,000 a day.
Wow. Significantly higher.
Yeah. Now, he said, you're not going to get that straight away, but I want you to know that that's what you're worth. And you need to be working towards convincing yourself you're worth that and earning that as soon as possible. Within 3 months of that conversation, I was earning $4,000 a day.
Wow. Incredible.
Yeah. In today's terms, that's worth around about $9,000 a day.
This is Coach Gary. Wanted to take a moment, got to pay some bills here. I wanted to talk to you guys about something that's extremely important to me and honestly is one of the primary reasons I've had the success so far last year and this year that I have, and that is 10X Health. So before we show you a little information about 10X Health, I wanted to say my energy is up, my clarity is up. I'm down 37 pounds. I've got the go-ahead, that vigor to play with my little girl, to enjoy time with my wife, and I keep looking forward to continuing to improve, and that is in large part thanks to 10X Health. So if you've been feeling that your energy is low, if you don't have that drive, that motivation that you feel that you really should, especially for the guys out there, it's not all about stuff in the bedroom. There's other things that can be fixed, that can be going on. So if you're looking for that, if you feel those things, it's time. 10X Health is your ticket.
Yeah. And that, how has that then impacted your growth curve, specifically on the revenue side over time? Has that held through as something that's really been a stepping stone or set as a marker to launch from?
Well, we went like this. Then when we got hit by the GFC, we went like this, and then we had to start again, and then it went like this, and then I got comfortable, and then it went like this,
Okay.
and now we're back like this again. So each of the 3 times of restarting my business, that mindset has been powerful because I believe in what I'm worth. So I haven't had a problem charging people what I'm worth because they get far more value than what I actually charge.
Yes, and that is where we think of how Grant puts that is, I know even if I'm the most expensive, I'm still the best deal because the value far exceeds, exactly just like you said. And I think that is so critical, and oftentimes it's difficult to sell ourselves on that, right? That's where the most important sale is me. It's you. It's getting that internally, and then from there we exude that confidence, and that then brings in those other opportunities. So through that, then those mentors and the guidance have really drawn through, and at all stages there, it's helped you to continue to excel, and then to start over and excel again, and have the fortitude to see future opportunities, to stick with it, but also each time learning more and more about what it is that you need to do to be truly successful. And I think now, certainly at this stage, you have those skills now embedded in, and like you said, you'll never go back to, especially the most dangerous one there, of comfort.
Oh, and look, another mentor was Gihan Pereira, who I still never physically met, right? He lives in Perth and on the other side of the country. It's like New York compared to LA, right? And anyway, in 2009, I was a customer of his, and I mentioned to him that I wanted to write a book, which was this one, What Really Matters for Young Professionals, right? Okay. And because a lot of my clients were in that university space still, and I was doing university professional development programs. Anyway, so I tell him I want to write a book. So that he says to me, "So Gary, are you writing?" I went, "No, I just told you I want to write a book." He goes, "Well, how are you going to write a book if you're not writing?" I went, "Okay, well, where do I write?" He goes, "Start a blog." Now this is 2009, right? This is early days. And I go, "Start a blog." I go, well, okay. I use Blogger, so some people would know Blogger. I'm not even sure if it still exists, but it was running back then.
I don't know. I can say I'm not familiar with it.
Anyway, he says, so just start writing. Write about what you want to write about, and you'll get feedback and stuff. And I go, but what if no one reads it? And he goes, the purpose of doing the blog is to make you write. It doesn't matter if no one reads it. I went, oh, okay. And all I was doing was coming up with negativity and resistance, right? And then I go, what if I write something that's wrong? He goes, press edit and fix it. I was like, every bit of negativity I'm throwing at him is like, batting that away. And it's like, okay, do it. So this first book was written initially as blog posts. And then, of course, I tidied it up. Yeah, and that's how I created my first book. And I actually published. Now, that took 12 months from concept to publication. And again, that was self-published, and it was a different world back then. But so that's how that rolled.
What a fantastic way to write a book. Because I think of is writing a book and having not done on where's the starting point, right? So, and I think that blog method really speaks to that. Is you write what comes, and then now you have this collection of works to be able, you can shift them, you can draw from them, reorganize and expand or contract based on the thoughts and the relevance then to the overall narrative. And that represents, at least to me, it's very striking, especially in that time frame, remembering that blogs were very new, and certainly even the World Wide Web, right? Was 2001 was really the start of like the tech bubbles and things of that nature, and through that time period, then 2009, it was still very much coming on and being dispersed out into general culture and getting that full adoption. Not at all like today, where it lives in everything, and we never are without too many connections. And that strikes me as being very innovative and adaptive. And I imagine there's that, as well as other times where that innovation and adaptability and the willingness to take those on has served you quite well.
Oh, look, I started my podcast in 2009.
Yeah.
Right.
And how many episodes are you up to now?
We're up to 160th episode this week because I was only doing 4 to 5 a year,
Okay.
and that's completely changed now. I do them weekly now, and I have been doing so again since June of this year.
Yeah. And you've been seeing some massive growth as far as followers. I know, particularly on YouTube, if I remember correctly.
That's correct. Again, I had my YouTube channel since 2010, but I had 47 subscribers on the 1st of June. I now have 22,897 as of this morning.
Wow. I had 15,000 in my head, so it's grown even since the last we had spoken.
Yeah. Incredible. I'll be close to 25,000, I would say, by the time Christmas comes. And again, that's just through this community, what I've been learning, different tools that are helpful to be able to get your word out. Because I had 90 odd videos and I only had 47 subscribers, but just the way I present, it was nothing to do with my content. It was all to do with the marketing of it, right? And all of that sort of stuff, which I've now. So you never stop learning. And I was doing webinars from 2013.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very early on the webinars.
Yeah. So I was doing them for massive series of webinars for like big six-figure contracts from learning and development point of view for my clients. And but again, I got comfortable with that world of I was using GoToWebinar, which I'm not even sure if it still exists either. But literally within the first 3 weeks of the pandemic, Gary, Zoom, I didn't even know what it was. And then out of a sudden, like I discovered it. And then I quickly discovered how much better people were making the webinar experience than what I'd been doing, because I had a tool that was not that good, really. And I thought it was the ants pants, but I'd stopped looking, right? Yeah. And so I went, I got to accelerate my learning. And so I really upped my game on my webinars in the year 2020 and haven't looked back, because you have to.
In the webinar piece in particular, I know that's something it's a hot button topic within the 10X community. It's very much at the forefront. There's been massive success training in front of it, but from a viewer or listener standpoint, you may not have done a webinar, may have never hosted one. How complex is it really? Is it something that requires a huge production value and a team to support you? Or is this something where you can be highly effective as an individual using, a couple pieces of technology as a tool?
I mean, I still do everything from my podcast and my YouTube and my webinars myself, because it's so doable. With the technology, it's so doable. Like, you've just got to be prepared to invest in paying for your Zoom membership in this instance, or as you and I do, we both pay for Riverside. Riverside's a fantastic tool for this. From a podcasting point of view, I use Buzzsprout. I've got my WavePad editor that I use for the sound, and I've got Camtasia that I use for the videos. And, it's really not that much work. And as we continue to grow and develop the business, as some of my own children get more and more involved, they're going to be taking over some of those tasks.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. And that's which they're pretty they're starting to observe and learn how to do that.
Good. So with that, then what I'm getting is there's no excuses. It's whether you're one person or you're a team, it's absolutely doable, and the upside to that is massive. And as you're mentioning, so the kids are getting to the age where they can start to be a little more active, and they have an interest and they want to be engaged. And I imagine that is a part of what you've laid out as and this term is so often misused, and know that when we say work-life balance, it's from the 10X mindset of recognizing there is no balance. You're either in on something or you're out on it. But recognizing then as the whole person that we create balance through duration. And I know you've got some views on that. How do you see both the family involvement as well as generally creating that balance or that wholeness through your different requirements as a business owner and as a family man and every other interest and pull that the universe throws at us?
And leading your own full life too, Gary. I think this is essential. I really believe in enlightened self-fulfillment, meaning if I can't be the best version of me and love myself, right, then my ability to serve and help other people is going to be lessened.
True.
So part of that whole balance and harmony, as I'm calling it in Yes for Success, is the fact that you're never really in balance. In fact, I believe balance, if you're going to look at it from a balanced perspective, you need to really zoom out and judge it over a much longer time frame, right? At least a year. Sometimes, when I was working full time on my business, I'm studying full time. I read a number of years with my master's degrees and some doctoral level studies, etc. They're multi-year timeframes, and so I would judge my balance over multiple years, with one caveat. There are elements in our life, like our health and key relationships, that you must understand what they are and what you want them to look like for your present and your future.
Yes.
So that you're at least doing maintenance work on them, even in really heavy schedules with work or study or whatever the case might be. And so I talk about understand that you're deliberately out of balance, but with this maintenance work on some things like health and key relationships, you just can't just put on a shelf and park, right? Okay.
And what is some of that maintenance work? Because I know we've talked on it, but when I think maintenance work, I think of lubricating something or fixing potholes in a road. So what does that look like in relationships or in our health when we are all in on the business in that moment?
Yeah. And equally with the parenting duties, right? So again, 5 children, when the kids are really young, Michelle and I, and this won't sound like much, but it's so important. Once a week, and we would be flexible around when that once a week was, because when you got 5 young kids and they're sick and they're this and they're that and there's stuff going on with school or sport, but
as I'm rapidly learning.
Which you're learning, right? And it's like, we need to share some time together. So as much as we could, we would walk with the pram together, right?
Okay, good.
So that's exercise and some time together. But it might only be a 10-minute walk sometimes, right?
Sure.
It might not be the nice long walk you really wanted. But even more importantly, we'd have one time a week when we would be sitting on the couch, just sharing some close physical space, often just watching something, whether it was a TV. I didn't care what it was, because it wasn't about, and sometimes we wouldn't watch anything, we would talk. So sometimes we would sit and watch something and just share that space and not talk anything, just share that space. And other times it would be, we wouldn't watch anything and we'd just be talking for an hour and a half or whatever we could grab, right?
Yeah.
But it was a conscious, deliberate choice to spend that time together, right? And then equally, as a busy father, I did not want to be an absent father. So I would deliberately get myself involved in my kids' sport.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, deliberately get involved, because then I have to make a commitment to get to the training. I have to make a commitment.
Yeah.
And then I'm getting to know their friends and the other friends' parents and all of those. But equally having some positive influence as well on the clubs that they're involved with.
Yeah, that was being able to exercise and exert some level of control over, again, like you said, those environments that they're a part of, to make sure that you are curating environments that they're learning and are wholesome all through their experiences.
But and then probably the most important thing, though, that we've taught all of our children, that I'm really proud of, that we've done this, and I'm more proud of our 5 children for accepting this lesson about life. Would you like to know what it is, Gary?
I would very much like to know.
And that is, we taught our children that they are responsible for their learning, not us. From the time that they were about 3, we started influencing this mindset for them, that they're responsible for it. So from a practical point of view, what does that actually look like? What it looked like was, initially, you have to encourage them to do this, where it would be like, go get your reader and come and sit with us.
Yep.
But then we say, now, when you're responsible for your learning, you'll bring your reader to us and ask us to sit down, and we will be available. If you go and get it. If you want to learn something, if you have a problem at school, you can't navigate it, you tell us and we'll help you. That's our job as a parent. Our job is to sometimes intervene with the school and that. But you tell us if something's not working for you. Like our 3rd son, he, at the age of 5, unlike the others, he still couldn't read.
Okay.
Yeah, and he can't, and like, he was really open, and I this is not working for me. So we went, right, let's go to the school. They're the experts, and in this instance, one of the teachers who was brilliant just said, hey, go buy a pack of 500 word cards, like just one word, cat, dog,
Okay.
butt,
Yeah.
right? 500 cards with these words, right? And just play with them with him and make sentences, like just make 3-word sentences.
Sure.
And it was like a game. Within 1 week, he went from not reading to reading. It just clicked through that one lesson, right? But if that wasn't, like, he led that, and then he was open to the solution, and he's never looked back, right?
No, and that's incredible. And I think especially in that instance, I know a lot of kids where when they're reading or they feel that they're behind it, it can induce shame. And then that prevents asking for any help whatsoever versus just being open as far as come to us with it and then being that support. And it allows then to have that opportunity to grow and to flourish those skills that may need a little extra developing, or they develop at a different time. Because I know, and I see this with my nephews versus my daughter, and with having 5 kids, you certainly saw it amongst them, is they walk at different times, they eat different foods, they like different things, and they each have their own, when they're little, they have their own little personalities, and then they flourish into these big personalities seemingly out of nowhere, and they're so unique, and everything occurs at a different pace. So even that, bring it to me now allows you to see what is their pace even, so that you can support them at the level they want to be supported at.
And Gary, of course, that mental model, that mindset got tested by the pandemic. Absolutely. And all 5 of our children, each of their ways, just shone with their responsibility for their learning for the various stages of life that they were at, right?
Sure.
But our youngest, who was 10, right? And this is a really powerful story. I come out, at that time, he was having 1 hour of online class, and then he would have the rest of the day to himself to do whatever homework he had, and then the next day check in for another hour.
Oh, that'd be so challenging at 10. That would be an extremely challenging schedule.
Oh, yeah. And I live in the most locked down first world city in the world. We had over 235 days of lockdown over 2.5 years, right?
Wow.
So we were massively restricted in our movement over that period of time. And again, in that first year, so my 10-year-old son, I come out of the office to go grab a coffee, right? So imagine that we got 7 people in our home, all, my wife's working.
Yeah.
Like but the 10-year-old, we trialed different systems, right? It's like, how are we going to make this work? And we trialed different systems. My 10-year-old son, who was sharing a room with his next oldest brother at the time, so he didn't get a room in his own. So he's in our lounge area. He came up with this idea. He said, Dad, what if you laminate a red and a green dot on either side of a sheet of paper, laminate it, and then everyone that's got a room, if they need silence, put the red dot up on the door with some blue tape. And he goes, I'll use the back of my computer. I'll stick it on that side of my computer. So if people come into the lounge area, they'll see that I'm on class or something and I need some quiet.
Yeah.
Because that was the hard, how do we manage all the other noise? It worked brilliantly. It was just a great system. Anyway, I come out for a coffee and I notice he's with his other mate of the same name, but from a different class now. They used to be in the class together the year before and they worked really well together. But now, and I'm thinking, that's interesting. Both of their names are Darcy. So Darcy's talking to Darcy. So it's Gary to Gary and Darcy to Darcy. So Darcy's talking to Darcy and I walk past and I'm making my coffee in the kitchen and I'm listening. And they're talking about schoolwork, but I know this class is finished, right? They're just, because at first I thought they're just doing kids messenger, hang on. Anyway, then I noticed they're talking about school stuff. They're doing their homework. So I get my coffee, I'm walking back, and I say to my Darcy, hey, Darcy, and then I say hello to the other Darcy. You two are doing some work. What's going on? And Darcy said, well, Dad, and he says, you know how you've taught me to be responsible for my learning? Well, Darcy and I work really well together, so we decided that after class, we'll get on Kids Messenger and we'll get our work done so then we can play for the rest of the day.
Wow, that's incredible.
And I said, now, the other Darcy, I bet he doesn't know what you mean when you say being responsible for your learning. Do you want to just explain it to him, please? And the other Darcy says, yeah, I'd like to hear that, please.
Yeah.
Because I go, you're doing it. Like with what my Darcy's about to explain to you, you're actually doing that now.
Yeah.
Right. And it's awesome.
Yes, it is. Oh my gosh. That is the level of of the responsibility, the wisdom there at that, especially at that age, to take that on and to seek it out and to know who do I work best with, that will serve him so well later in life, as well as it's already serving well.
Yeah.
Incredible. And in some of the most challenging times too, right? With the pandemic, extremely challenging.
Yeah. And with what I was explaining, it happened to our business and all of that sort of stuff. Michelle and I still had a responsibility to our family to still be true to ourselves, to still keep modeling being responsible for our own learning.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it ain't going to work if you tell someone to do that and you ain't doing it yourself.
No. You have to be able to back it up, and you have to be able to show that and oftentimes lead by example. And that then turns into in laying these frameworks and creating these environments. I know we've been talking a lot about our families and building it from that standpoint, and it works in our businesses as well, as certainly we talked earlier on. But that all builds to then a legacy or a greater impact that we look to leave. And I think it sounds that you're very clear on yours. So I'm curious to hear, what would you say is that legacy or impact that you look to leave, primarily from a business standpoint, but certainly recognizing then that our businesses are a tool to be able to reach our other goals and activities. So what is that legacy that you'd love to leave and are working towards leaving?
Yeah, so my legacy is I want to enable people to realize and recognize that there are, in fact, choices available to them to be living the life that they want to live. That will do two fundamental things. It will actually make them more happy now because they'll be far more aware of the very little things that actually make you happy if you're prepared to see them. How happy do you think I was? I'm getting goosebumps now thinking about when I saw Darcy having that chat with Darcy.
Oh my God.
I'm like,
the pride as a parent.
Yeah, like all of that work. When one of my clients says, "Oh my God, Gary, I'm so thankful for the work that you did. I'm seeing this. I feel so much more confident. I went and did this, and it really worked." I mean, that just makes me so happy now, right? And they're happy. So I want to help people. My legacy is about enabling people to go, you know what? I can actually have more happiness now, and I can increase the probability of having more happiness in the future. And of course, I'm still going to have ups and downs and bumps and bruises and all the things that life throws at me. But I'm actually going to be better able to handle them when they come along, right? I'll actually know when the bumps come along, I'm not going to freak out. I'm going to actually have confidence that I know I can find a way here.
Yeah.
I can navigate this, right? I can still, because the gift that the bumps in the road give us, Gary, is they make you ask, do I really want that future?
Yes.
Like I said with the pandemic.
Again.
Yeah. Do I really want it? And like, I got asked that with the pandemic and what happened. Do I really want to keep running this business? I got to really asked it.
Yes. And that leads then to something that I've heard and really think speaks along those lines as well, is oftentimes it's, who do you need to become, right? Our current version of ourselves may not be congruent with our goals or the legacy we want to leave. But through that, these bumps are oftentimes those times where we get the most learning in a very, very condensed time. And that's part of the pain that maybe we experience, the uncomfortableness, is we're rapidly learning and it is pushing us outside of that comfort, but it's changing us for the better and towards where we're tracking to.
Look, along those lines, I really believe in the yin and yang symbol. So you know that yin and yang symbol. And on the one hand, when things aren't going well, it's accept your brutal reality, right? Now, successful people are really, really awesome at assessing reality for what it actually is, but no worse. They don't make it worse than it is. If it's crap, they don't make it crapper.
No.
I'm making up an Aussie word there, folks. Right? Crap. Don't make it. But don't
translations.
That's right. But don't pretend it's all roses if it's not, right? At any one point in time, there's a bit of good, bad, and ugly in most of right? But sometimes, some of the bad and ugly overwhelms. But the other side of the yin and yang is to go, you know what? I don't know when it's going to kick in, but I have the absolute faith that there's going to be a point in time that I'm going to learn something that's going to make me better. and I'm going to be so happy with who I become because of this experience that I will look back and say, if I had the choice to live this experience again, that I would choose to live it again because of the benefits I've ended up getting. Like, that's the yin and yang. I've had this happen so many times now in my life now, Gary, including, which I talk about in my book, Yes for Success, when I had a head-on car accident with my then 19-year-old girlfriend who got brain damage. And I ended up with life-threatening injuries myself, but I was driving the car. And I wasn't drunk or anything like that, but I made an error as a driver that changed someone else's life.
Had a very real consequence. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it was horrific. And it took me a long time to learn this lesson about the yin and yang. But I if I could live that again and her not, I would take that version. Like, if I could have every bit of my experience that she didn't have to have it, that would be my preference. But in terms of my experience of it and the impact on me and the trauma that I went through, but I'm pretty happy with who I am. And I know that what I learned through that terrible event has shaped me and formed me in such an influential and powerful way. I wouldn't give it up.
And that is the way you describe it. It takes an extremely complex concept, but it boils it down so well. So thank you. And just how you explain that in itself. For those who listen to the whole thing here, I think just that piece in of itself has been well worth the conversation and the listen. Wow, incredible. So I think on that, we'll call it a wrap here for this time. We'll certainly, I will see you soon here, and we'll certainly look to have you back on to explore more topics and continue the story. But I wanted to ask you, what is the best way to find you, Gary? What's the best place to pick up your book, Yes for Success? And how can the viewers and listeners go ahead and do that?
Okay, thanks. So all three books are available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. So depending which is your online bookstore, and in fact, all other good online bookstores. If they want to get them directly from me where I can sign them, yesforsuccess.guru, Guru, yesforsuccess.guru. Otherwise, my company is orgsthatmatter.com. So the company's called Organizations That Matter, but the website is orgsthatmatter.com. And certainly reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn. You'll find me very easily. In fact, if you search Gary Ryan, I come up pretty quickly in Google search across the board there. So there's some general easy ways for folk to reach out and connect.
Excellent. And I encourage, of course, please reach out to Ryan, check out his podcast as well, check out the books, get in touch, and have those impacts to not just yourself, but your whole company. And really working with Ryan, Gary, is always a pleasure. And we've got so many Garys going on. This episode has been fantastic. I love the Gary, and then we've got the Darcy and the Darcy. So we've just really layered it in here. So with that, I hope you have an amazing, incredible 10x rest of your day. Enjoy the rest. Please listen to other episodes and be sure to follow, like, subscribe, and share. You had an amazing experience with Grow with Gary, Modern Life and Business, with your host, Coach Gary, and very special guest, Gary Ryan. Thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Grow with Gary. You're officially one step closer to crushing your business goals. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Connect with Gary by reaching out on social media at McHughGrowth or online at mchughgrowth.com/podcast. And be sure to include a comment with your top takeaway. Until next time, this has been Grow with Gary.